All right, let's begin this hour with former President Trump's claim that he is going to be arrested tomorrow. There's actually no evidence that will happen, but a grand jury in New York is investigating his alleged hush money payments to a porn star. Trump is also facing criticism for a message to supporters to protest. It echoes his language in the run-up to January 6th, and there are new concerns that his words could lead to violence again. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy urged people yesterday to stay calm and to not protest if Trump is indicted or arrested. But he did show his support for the former president, calling the Manhattan DA's investigation politically motivated.
It doesn't matter what side of the issue you're on. It doesn't matter if this was President Trump or if this was a Democrat. It should be equal justice in America. And stop going after people because you have political differences.
Robert Costa has more from the Manhattan Criminal Court, where there may be additional testimony today.
This is selective prosecution. If I were President Trump, I'd take this all the way to the damn Supreme Court.
Former President Donald Trump and his allies on the political and legal warpath over the weekend as Trump faces down a possible indictment in Manhattan Criminal Court. On Saturday, Trump claimed he will be arrested on Tuesday of next week and urged his supporters to protest and take our nation back. He then urged in a follow-up, "We must save America. Protest, protest, protest." CBS News has learned that some Trump allies privately debated over his call for protests.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
Since it has echoes of Trump's call for protests on January 6, 2021, the day the Capitol was attacked. In response to Trump's post, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg told colleagues in an email that safety is the top priority, and we do not tolerate attempts to intimidate our office or threaten the rule of law in New York. Trump's potential 2024 rivals are also reacting. Former Vice President Mike Pence spoke out against any possible indictment in this case.
It just feels like a politically charged prosecution here.
And even some Republican critics of Trump say it could play to his political advantage.
A lot of the Democrats have misplayed this in terms of building sympathy for the former president.
The Manhattan District Attorney is investigating alleged hush money payments made to adult film star Stormy Daniels on Trump's behalf by his former attorney Michael Cohen at a crucial moment in the 2016 campaign. Trump denies any wrongdoing. But Cohen's lawyer, Lanny Davis, told CBS News his client testified truthfully to the grand jury earlier this month. And now it is in their hands.
If there was any political motivation to prevent the alleged affair with Stormy Daniels from coming out right before the election, and a jury is to conclude that there is any political motivation, then I think that's the key issue.
Trump lawyer Joe Tacopina told CBS News over the weekend that if charged, the former president's legal team will be aggressive in questioning the scope and credibility of an indictment, as well as the credibility of Michael Cohen, the key witness in this investigation. Mr. Cohen will be in New York today as a possible rebuttal witness should the grand jury decide to have him over following an appearance by Bob Costello. Anne-Marie, Vlad.
All right, Bob, thank you very much. So Rebecca Roiphe is here with us in Studio 57 to dig a little deeper into all of this. She's a CBS News legal contributor and a former Manhattan prosecutor. And CBS News reporter Graham Kates, who's been following this case for us, is standing by just outside of the courthouse in New York. So stand by for a little bit, Graham, because I want to start with Rebecca. So, Rebecca, if the president or former president is going to be arrested, I'm assuming that he doesn't have to sort of distill that from various media reports, that he would get a direct message to know whether or not tomorrow was the day or not.
Absolutely. In a case like this, the Manhattan DA's office would communicate with the former president's lawyers, and they would arrange some kind of a surrender.
Okay, it's not going to show up as a surprise. You know, the DA's office has been sort of collecting evidence for a while now. We're talking about something that happened in 2016. Why does it take so long?
It's actually not all that surprising. Cases often move in this kind of direction when fits and starts, new evidence arrives, new theories, and different lawyers on the case. So it really doesn't seem all that surprising. What's surprising, of course, is we get more glimpses into it because there's so much media attention.
Right. And was it held up a little bit, obviously, because he was the president for 4 years?
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, so, there was, of course, the federal prosecution of Michael Cohen, in which the former president was named individual one. The assumption was that he wasn't charged in that case because there's a DOJ, Department of Justice policy that you don't charge former presidents for crimes while they're in office. And then, of course, when he was no longer in office, it opened it up to new inquiry.
Right. Graham, you are standing by outside of the Manhattan DA's office. We know that the former president called on protesters to take to the streets to support him. What's it like out there? Anybody out there?
So far, there aren't actually many protesters, but all around are the signs of plans for protests. The NYPD, just down the block from you might be able to hear it. There's a staging area where they have dozens of barriers that they're setting up across from the courthouse. And there's definitely a different feel than there is normally around here. There's a much larger police presence than normal, even though this is a courthouse and there's usually plenty of police to begin with.
Graham, we know that the jury may be hearing from Robert Costa, who's a former legal advisor to Michael Cohen. Costello's testimony will likely try to discredit Cohen. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And Rebecca, I want to ask you about it as well.
Sure. So, they had a relationship before this, that he was a legal advisor to Cohen. And the best guess at this is that they're going to try to impugn Michael Cohen's character. We know that he went to prison on charges related to this alleged hush money payment. And so this is can be seen as kind of their attempt to try to undermine the person who is really the key witness, as far as we know, in this grand jury proceeding.
Rebecca, your sort of take on this move as a strategy?
So, first of all, in New York, unusually, the defendant actually does get to suggest witnesses for the grand jury, which is not typical of all grand jury practices. So that's what's going on here. I think it's interesting that this is not a witness who had anything to do with the payments itself, but rather somebody who was on the scene much later. I think 2018 was when he had interactions with Michael Cohen, not during the time that the payments were actually made. So clearly, Graham is right. This is about his credibility. Second point is, even if Cohen did waive the attorney-client privilege, it's very unusual and arguably inappropriate for a former representative of Michael Cohen, if that's what he was, to voluntarily come forward anyway to give testimony against a former client. Now, details of that are not clear. Was he actually a representative of Cohen or not? But that's a sort of complication in this whole story.
So I think so far, out of the sort of many legal challenges that the former president has had, this one is the most furthest along, I think, that in which he's kind of at the center of it, not his business. Could this case impact other cases against him? Are there other cases connected to this?
The cases are really separate. The investigators are separate. I mean, you have Georgia, you have the Department of Justice investigating January 6th and Mar-a-Lago documents. And then you have this. They are distinct sets of facts, and they are distinct offices or investigator sovereigns even. So really, they are independent of one another. But that said, of course, they are watching each other and seeing how things proceed.
Right. Rebecca, Graham, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.